Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our inspiring content. Here is episode 129.
Kind of our mission, our grand mission, is to make kind of education more personalized. We want to make it sort of personalized to your interests, to your personalities, to your character.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Andrew Kwan. Andrew is the founder and education director at Outwhiz.com. He has a BA in economics from Harvard and a master's in computer science and also in management science and engineering from Stanford. Andrew founded Outwhiz after hearing his nephews complain about math worksheets from the traditional supplemental program. So he set out on a mission to create a math practice program that both students and parents will love. He is the pioneer in applying technology to improve education. In addition to Outwhiz, he has founded Edore, an open online education platform to help students connect learning with their real lives and interests. Previously, he was in charge of software performance at Yahoo's homepage and built various software systems at SugarSync. He's coming to us from Hong Kong. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Rebecca. Just wanted to say hello to all your podcast audience out there. Thank you for listening.
Great. I'm just so excited to learn more about your program and stuff. I love learning how technology is improving education. But before we learn more about that, would you please go ahead and just briefly tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so thank you, Rebecca. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong. For those of you who have been to, in your podcast audience, who have been to Asia, you might have sort of route through Hong Kong in your flight because it's one of the busiest airports in the world. So I grew up here and I was in Hong Kong until I was about 14 years old. So I was schooled in kind of the Hong Kong education system. By the time I was 14, my parents and I sort of one summer, we visited New Hampshire. And, collectively we decided that, hey, let's try boarding school. So, initially it was sort of their idea, right? But when I went for the tour, I really liked sort of this idea of being independent. And so spent about 3 years in New Hampshire attending a boarding school where essentially we would go to school sort of as early as 8 o'clock in the morning. And, the day is packed filled with sports activities, music, and classes, and you don't get out of school until 6 o'clock, and afterwards it's dinner. Yeah, so you live with a bunch of guys, and it's a very, very, very kind of unique experience where you really get to learn, and you live with people that you'll sort of never forget in your life, right? Because those were your sort of formative years. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that would be an exciting experience. You're talking about being on your own, but it sounds like they kept you pretty busy. Anyway, so.
Yeah, it kept us really busy, but kind of like you learn how to sort of live with other people, right? Like there was, for example, there were 2 phone booths in our dorm. Our dorm had about 24 boys, of course now they're men, living there. And basically you have to sort of figure out when's your time to get out of that booth when the seniors wanted to talk, right? And when you're a senior, you sort of figure out how to sort of,
muscle your way around, or
I wasn't sure sort of how to sort of put it in the more. Yeah. So it's an interesting experience. It's kind of and also it's kind of a different education experience from my time in Asia. In boarding school, the school kind of had this tradition of teaching in so-called what they call a round table. So they call it the Harkness method. And we had, about 12 boys and girls sitting around in an oval table. And even the science subjects were taught that way. So the idea is to kind of, the teacher is not necessarily kind of the sage on the stage, but kind of a guide by the side, right? That's kind of a common term in Edtech right now. But kind of during my time at boarding school, the teachers were already doing that. they were meant to be sort of facilitators who kind of ask questions, and the conversation would kind of flow around the table in a more sort of natural manner. This concept of kind of teachers being kind of really the people who motivate and facilitate, that's sort of the earliest days of how I experienced that kind of a sort of guide by the side concept. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So we talked about in your bio a little bit of the inspiration with your nephew complaining about worksheets and stuff like that, but can you really give us the insight of what that inspiration behind your company? I mean, you talked about that a little being in boarding school and stuff, but really dive into that for us.
Yeah. So I started out was about 2.5 years ago. And kind of it literally sprang from what you talked about, right? So my sister lives in Vancouver, Canada. She has 2 boys, and right now they're about 12 and 10. But a couple of years ago they were a little bit younger. When I visited my sister and my 2 nephews, there were times when I saw my sister essentially sort of like kind of telling my nephews, "Hey, Derek and Adam, do your math." So I was kind of surprised, what's going on. So kind of what I realized is my sister had my 2 nephews doing their math worksheets. I'm sure a lot of sort of homeschool parents or kind of family-directed learners out there have some experience with doing worksheets at home or kind of, right?
Yeah.
So I went to my 2 nephews. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" They're like, "Hey, like uncle, like I'm sure you've been here, but we don't really want to do them. We want to play video games, or we want to watch TV, or this is fairly common, right?"
Yeah.
So I thought, hey, is there a way where they can have more fun while doing these works? Like, in some sense, some amount of practice is definitely inevitable, right? Especially for subjects like math, where ultimately it's a very, when you get to very high level math in college, or kind of if you're doing a PhD, or it's a very, very creative endeavor. But kind of in the earliest stage, you can teach math very creatively, both as a parent and as a teacher. But as creative as you can be, some amount of practice is inevitable. Like you do have to kind of know, 3 plus 2 is 5, right?
Yeah.
Or like 3 times 2 is 6, right? Like that's, and you can frame it in many ways. You can frame it as kind of like in a daily life problem and all that. But at some point, like the kids need to sort of understand, still have to manipulate these basic numbers kind of like in their head, right?
Yeah.
So kind of our thinking is there a way to sort of like help kids have more fun, like sort of gamify it, right? And not just kind of gamify it, this sort of basic practice and the common sense, but like, is there a way that sort of they can, after doing a certain amount of math, sort of earn credits towards, let's say, earning a reward, right? And this is all optional on our platform. You don't have to do it. But if your kids are the type that like, hey, that are more milestone oriented, that's something that we allow the kids to do. It's kind of, you can earn video games playing time on our platform. You can actually earn, iTunes gift cards on our platform.
Oh, wow.
It's optional, but it's something that parents have the choice to do.
Well, and don't you think, too, and this is kind of an off-the-cuff kind of question, but where our kids are growing up with electronics anyway, that doing the regular, math worksheets or kind of the old-school type learning isn't really working for them anymore because they're used to, faster-paced material. Is that kind of how, maybe some of the inspiration behind that comes from?
Completely. I think kind of as parents, I'm sure a lot of parents realize their kids, they do have iPad or Android tablet or computer time, right? Like, so some amount of kind of, the reality is sort of, no matter how hard you try, they are spending some time on their iPads or Android tablets or websites. And usually a lot of them is playing video games, right? Like, would you rather have them playing video games 100% of the time? Or would you rather kind of have them playing video games X percentage of the time, and the remaining time they're actually putting into sort of productive work, learning in some ways. And in the learning process, actually, they can earn credits or kind of rewards that sort of you're probably spending. I've talked to a bunch of parents, and the truth is kind of like, their kids are spending, lots of, probably more than they should be on video games or sort of like in-game credits anyways. Is there a way to sort of have them earn their way through to those credits before just kind of letting them spend? that's kind of our thinking too.
That's great. Yeah. So kind of tell me, what did your educational journey look like? We talked about in your bio how you have computer science, a master's in that, and then some of those type of things. How did that play into to kind of moving towards opening, technology and education? Give us, your educational journey of how all that evolved.
Yeah, happy to. So I was an economics major at Harvard. I picked my major in retrospect, I probably should have kind of explored more. I probably should have explored more. I think college is one of those times when you can really sort of, in the first year especially, or the first year and a half, explore as many subjects kind of or interests as you like before you kind of narrow down into a thing. I loved majoring in economics, but I wish I kind of knew more about computer science up front, right? Like I might have majored in computer science as early as in college if I kind of knew how fun it was. I did my econ major in college, and when I first went out to Stanford, I was in this program called Management Science and Engineering, which turns out to be kind of a really, really fun program where you learn about entrepreneurship, where you learn about kind of managing technology organizations. But kind of sort of midway, I finally sort of stumbled upon computer science, right? There was some basic sort of programming requirements built into that program. And in the process of kind of doing the basic programming, I sort of found it extremely interesting, right? So to me, programming is kind of like writing, right? For those in the audience that are not super familiar with computer programming, essentially like the way software is written is you're just writing these kind of instructions, right? You're writing instructions for the computer to perform certain things, right? And to me, it's like actually really, really similar to writing a novel. In a novel, you're telling a story, you're guiding your audience through a series of thoughts that initially were in your head, but you're just putting your thoughts down into paper. And it's a very creative process. Software is the same, right? Writing software is like you have a goal in mind. Instead of sort of writing words that are interpreted by people, you're writing essentially words and symbols that are interpreted by computers. And people tend to think of sort of computers as software engineering as kind of a lonely profession, but nothing can be sort of farther from the truth, right? Like if you're working at Google or Facebook or a startup like ours, you're working usually in very small teams where kind of maybe a team of 5 to 10 people focused on delivering a product, right? Like if you're on the Skype team, or if you're on the, like Google Mail team, Gmail team, or if you're on our team, on the Outwhiz team, you have these ideas of what your end users want, and you sort of crystallize those ideas into requirements, and then you kind of, you write them the way you would write a novel. So it to me, kind of doing an education technology company is kind of the right way for me to express my creativity. So I've always been intrigued by both the arts and sciences. Steve Jobs likes to say kind of technology is sort of where arts meets the sciences, where humanities meets the sciences. And I sort of really agree with that. In my own experience, it's truly been sort of like the arts part is in trying to understand more about parents, right? Trying to understand more about teachers, trying to understand more about students. And in the process, like the way I would sort of implement my understanding or my sort of ideas on how to help students or teachers or families is to sort of follow the science and just sort of put it into code.
Wow. I've never heard it explained that way. It sounds like maybe you need a little more English type base to be able to be a great computer programmer than I thought. I thought it was mostly mathematical or, science based, but you made it sound like it's very important to know how to write as well.
I think so. I think right now, there's a lot of focus now on kind of whether you're homeschooled or in a school, that there's a lot of sort of talk about STEM, right? Empowering technology. That's definitely true. Like if you don't think logically, if you don't have kind of the basic math, if you don't like math, it's kind of hard to be a programmer. But what I'll say is also like in the sort of entrepreneurship journey or kind of trying to build the right product for the end user in mind, you kind of have to have a sort of humanities bent as well, right? Like you have to empathize with your users.
Yeah, maybe you have to be a little more well-rounded than what, just shoving the science and the math in there.
Right, you got to know what your users want, and you got to listen to them.
Great. Well, before we go into, the kind of the nuts and bolts of your company and some of the services that you offer, I just am curious how you feel like your paradigm about learning has changed over time and with experience.
Yeah. So kind of, I'll start from the very beginning, right? So I think when I first came to the US when I was 14, I think there are a lot of generalizations made about kind of Asia and US education systems. What I'll say is from my own experience, I think if people think of, kind of the way I think of education is, it's a little bit like when I first learned the piano, right? So I'll tell you a little bit of a story about sort of how I learned the piano. And it's not the typical story, right? So my mom is a pianist, not by profession, but she's a pretty hardcore pianist, amateur pianist. So when I was kind of 5 years old, she sent me to this piano teacher, and I kind of learned the piano the classic way, right? So I went through a sort of 8 years of piano, not really knowing what I'm doing. In the sense that, like, I didn't really like the piano when I was young. I had something that I had to do. I had a teacher who taught me, and I didn't get it. Like, I didn't get it in the first 8 years of my piano journey, right? So at the end of those 8 years, my piano teacher actually fired me.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. He told my mom, hey, so it turns out he and my mom had the same piano teacher themselves. So he told my mom, hey, sorry, but I sort of can't take Andrew as a student anymore. I've did 8 years of teaching him, and he has a certain level of proficiency, and, he passed all the piano exams up to a certain point. He's like, but I can't teach him because he told me he genuinely isn't interested anymore. And it kind of, there was no point in me teaching him. So essentially I rediscovered piano when I went to boarding school in New Hampshire, right? Because you can imagine, like, if you're done from school at 6 o'clock and you have dinner, if you're not doing homework or if you're not studying, you got to find something else to do, right? When I went to New Hampshire, I really sort of discovered my passion for piano. But it would not have been possible if I didn't have those first 8 years of kind of learning the piano. There are certain things that, like, the human brain is funny, right? Like, sometimes we don't connect the dots until, like, Steve Jobs likes to say, like, he dropped out of college and then he dropped back in for a little bit to learn about fonts and typography, right? And it heavily influenced his kind of inspirations for designing the Mac much later on. So in the first 8 years of my kind of piano teaching, piano learning, I didn't connect the dots. But kind of when I was in boarding school, I did. The way it sort of relates to my educational philosophy is sometimes there are certain people who are able to discover kind of the passion in learning and knowledge kind of relatively early on. And great for them, right? But it doesn't happen to everyone. So what we're trying to do in kind of our product is we're trying to sort of make it just a little bit more fun in the beginning. So maybe if we can just increase your chance of being proficient, we think sort of building a basic level of proficiency helps you connect the dots to have passion later on. If you're not one of those types that sort of are passionate in day one about a particular subject, that's kind of what sort of motivates us. Is there a way we can sort of like, in different ways, explore how to build proficiency so we can set up the students for the possibility of being able to develop passion later on? Instead of sort of thinking as passion as simply a prerequisite for kind of skills, is there a way that, like, we can, gamify education earlier on so the students can develop enough skills that at least they're more likely, some of them are more likely to develop passion later on. That's kind of our overriding education philosophy when we develop Outwhiz.
Oh, wow. So what I'm getting from this is that you want to see kids get passionate way earlier than what, our normal school system kind of does. Because I think some of us don't find that passion for whatever we want until we're at that higher level of learning. And then some kids, if they never develop it, they kind of get lost in the shuffle. That's what I'm understanding. Is that what you're saying there?
Yeah. So we're trying to empower families and teachers to kind of have a wider set of toolkit to motivate different types of kids, right? So in some classrooms, sometimes there are certain kids that are kind of lost along the way, right? Like there are many, and it kind of depends on a kid, right? Like, so we wanted to give both parents and teachers kind of more tools. There are certain kids who kind of are really gung-ho in day one, and by all means, they can use Outwhiz and kind of, do kind of self-paced learning anytime they want. There are kids who are motivated by their peers.
Yeah,
right?
Rewards,
like if they see that, right. And there are kids who are more motivated by rewards. Trying to have like what we call a motivation layer that we provide the toolkit for like parents or teachers to kind of, depending on a kid, to kind of give them different ways to motivate the students. Because we know it's not one size fits all. We know not just content, right? Like there's a lot of talk about adaptive learning, like in our sort of education technology circle, to kind of like adjust the level of the content to the student. I think that is great, and we do that. But on top of that, we also kind of need to adjust to the personalities and characters of students, right? Like we talked about, some are motivated by rewards, some are motivated by intrinsically, some are motivated by kind of their peers. Yeah. And we need to have different ways in the same product to kind of cater to different personalities.
Yeah, definitely personalizing it, sounds like.
Yes.
That's great. Before we go on, let's listen to this message.
Hey Firestarters, this is Mark, producer of The Luminous Mind. If you're like me, the thought of going out to the store and shopping is enough to make you want to crawl in a hole and hide. If that's you, then do your shopping online through Amazon. Just go to theluminousmind.net, click on the Amazon link, and shop away. Also, most of the books and resources that Rebecca and her guests discuss can be found on our Amazon links as well. Again, if you're like me, you have already accidentally signed up for Amazon Prime. So most of those purchases should have free shipping as well. Good luck!
Back to the Luminous Mind with Andrew Kwan with Outwhiz.com. All right, so let's go into the nuts and bolts of what Outwhiz is like, what services you offer, and then maybe we can go into your Edore and what you're hoping to establish with that open educational platform or online platform.
Yeah, happy to do that. So Outwhiz is a website and app. So if you're on Android or you're on iOS, you can download our app. It's basically a website and app where kids can practice math or English as a second language. For those of you who English is not the first language, you can use our ESL product. Practice. Essentially, we have a lot of sort of content built around self-paced learning that especially probably homeschoolers would find very helpful, because we have kind of a complete math curriculum for, let's say, the first 8 years of math learning. So you can sort of practice, and as you practice and learn, we gamify things. So kids level up, they earn badges, they earn, they have avatars that they can decorate their profiles with. They compete in leaderboards if they want to. And if you already have an existing budget for kind of in-game credits for iPads or Android tablets, you can move that in-game budget to our system. They don't just sort of get the in-game credits. They can't immediately do the in-app purchase, but actually have to learn and earn those credits. So that's kind of a high level of what Outwhiz do. One thing sort of that's really sort of core to us is analytics, right? So we know sort of parents have different beliefs about sort of how hardcore they want to do analytics for their kids' learning. And the way we sort of frame it is it's really up to the parents, right? Like, if you just want to kind of check that, we have done something in the past month, our analytics dashboard can tell them that. But if you're really hardcore and you kind of want to sort of, look at, how many exercises have they done in, let's say, fractions? We have a really sort of sophisticated analytics dashboard where there's both kind of high-level analytics, what the student has done from a high-level standpoint, aggregated over the last week, or you can do a deep dive. So we cater to both sort of really hands-on parents or sort of relatively laid-back parents as well.
So it kind of sounds like you could use it as a supplemental product, or you could use it as more of the primary math problem instead of doing worksheets, maybe doing something like this.
Exactly, because a lot of the homeschool parents actually want to do the teaching themselves. So like you'll hear about kind of homeschooling parents kind of trying to engage their kids. The way they teach addition, for example, it would actually it could be just like having breakfast, right? And you have like 3 pieces of tomatoes on a plate, small tomatoes, and maybe like 2 sausages and maybe 1 egg, right? So how many food items are there on a plate? Like for a lot of homeschooling parents who are more hands-on, kind of math, like kind of like learning and teaching and interacting with a kid is an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Integrated into a sort of daily life. So kind of if you're doing all the teaching already and you want to sort of find a supplement that helps you with kind of worksheets to kind of enhance or solidify kind of your daily interactions, You can use our system and you get analytics on top.
Yeah. And it sounds like it can be something you don't have to fight your child to do.
Yeah. If they're into iPad games or Android games, certainly you can set up a reward system on our platform.
That's awesome. Well, and then tell us about Edore, of what you're doing on that with that educational platform.
Yeah. So we actually have a vision on Edore. So if you're, so let me sort of talk about it and in sort of a broad strokes, and then sort of I can bring it back to how it can help homeschooling families. So Edore is essentially the way I think of it is it's a DIY curriculum or DIY content platform, right? So you can imagine the students, if they're working on homework or exam or kind of even on a worksheet that you download off the internet, a lot of the questions are kind of unrelated. Sometimes, the questions aren't necessarily related to the student's interests. For example, if you kind of flip through the back of a typical textbook, you get the typical textbook question. Relatively speaking, one size fits all, right? The whole class does this problem, or the whole class work on these sort of worksheets or questions at the back of a textbook. And the way we think about it is there a way we can kind of help teachers and families or students DIY their own homework questions, right? We've all heard the saying, if you give a person a fish and they get fed for a day, right?
Yeah.
And teach them how to fish and they're set for life. What we're trying to do in education is even kind of one step further. We're trying to empower even students themselves to design their own homework questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, once again, we're taking it back to a personalized education, right? And creating that passion on an earlier basis than what we're getting nowadays, I guess.
So if you think about it, let's say you have a fifth grader obsessed with the basketball, right? Why isn't he getting kind of content that relates math to basketball, right? If he's learning math, why shouldn't he be learning kind of fractions with LeBron James shooting percentages? Can he get a homework problem that's teaching fractions but kind of framed in Kevin Durant's shooting percentages? Why aren't they seeing their sports heroes or kind of their role models in homework or kind of, in daily life, in their daily education?
Wow.
So what we're trying to do is kind of build a platform. If you think about it, we think of ourselves as kind of like a blogger of education, right? Like the Google blogger or the Google Blogspot of education. We allow teachers, parents to design their own homework questions or kind of lesson plan.
Wow.
And they can share it with other people. Other people can adapt from the existing work. And if you take it to a homeschooling context, if you can get together 100 homeschooling families in your community, why can't there be sort of a committee of 2 or 3 really passionate homeschool parents to actually write their own curriculum, write their own lesson plans, write their own homework, use a platform to kind of share it with those other hundreds, the world, certainly the world, or the homeschooling community at large. Sort of the content can really relate to the students' interests.
Yeah, I love that. So can you just type in say my daughter's really into ballet, and you type in, ballet, does it regenerate questions? Is that how it kind of works, or?
So you're in charge. You generate the questions. So what we do is we have essentially, a lot of people are familiar with Yahoo Mail or Gmail, right?
Yeah.
So Yahoo Mail or Gmail, you type in a box and you can make the font bigger, you can make it bold, you can put in bullet points, you can do all that. So we do all that, and on top, we make it very easy to embed a YouTube video clip, right? So if you find interesting YouTube content on ballet, or when kids are interacting with content, they want to, if I like ballet, I don't just want to see a ballet question. I want to watch a 1-minute ballet video.
Yeah.
And then I want to see a question that kind of relates to the video, right? So we offer essentially kind of the way you would write an email in Gmail is the way you would kind of create content on a platform. Except, you can do a lot more things, you can embed YouTube videos, you can easily sort of embed images, you can create a multiple choice question, and you tell us, when you're typing a multiple choice question, you tell our system kind of what the answers you're expecting, or if it's an open problem, you just kind of put in a big text box. If you've told us the answer, our system will auto-grade it. If it's an open answer problem, we will collect the feedback, and then you can grade it manually later. Or if it's not about grading, right? It's if you just want to kind of get the kids' thought on a certain, topic, you can just put in a text box and the kids can start typing. and you sort of can read about their thoughts later on, right? Just think of it as like a general platform where you can create content and you can sort of see what the kids are thinking about.
That's great. It sounds like you can use it for, a variety of different people could pull that and be able to use that for a certain subject. Awesome. Great.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, tell us some of your testimonials, successes that you've seen with Outwhiz and then Edore.
Yeah, so happy to talk about that. So one day I got an email from someone in West Liberty, Kentucky. Apparently, kind of one of the kids there has won so we have this thing called Weekly Challenge, where kids can compete. And if you kind of win that weekly challenge, we give you reward points, which you can use to redeem for rewards on our reward store. So one day I got an email from a gentleman by the name of Steven, and he tells me, hey, one of my boys has won the weekly challenge last week, but he's not allowed to email. And I asked him, why is that? And then Steven tells me they're actually a secure care school. I don't know if you are familiar with that term.
No, I'm not. Tell us about it.
It turns out a secure care term is essentially it's a juvenile justice center. So it's essentially kind of for kids, it's a correction facility, probably is the right way to put it. Because they're in a correction facility, they can't email. But apparently, one of the teachers who teach at that, I guess it's probably both a teacher or kind of a facilitator there. A facilitator there has found out about us and kind of introduced Outwhiz to these kids who are serving their terms in correction facility. And so I was like, wow, these people can't email. They probably have very limited access to computer time on a daily basis. And they found us and they're using our platform. And it turns out kind of a lot of those kids have been either sort of, probably a lot of them out of circumstance have kind of gone on a different path. That's why they're in a correction facility. It turns out they all share the same email. So all their usernames kind of start with WRDC. I noticed a lot of them has been winning our weekly challenges in the past few months. It's really touching to me when I get that email. Like, I don't know if I'm privy to kind of reading the contents of that email out loud, but let me paraphrase it. The way it's been put, it sounds like most of them have not had kind of a positive experience in their childhood due to various reasons. The quote that I get from this, from Stephen is, anything that engages them in learning is great, especially because we're a free product. Truly are a free product. We have kind of paid options, but most of our students or families or teachers use our product for free. We're just really touched when we learned that there's a correction facility where, we have kids from there in Kentucky, like winning these weekly challenges quite often, and they probably don't have an iPad, right, accessible to them. They're probably using a computer. They probably are not allowed to play. I don't know, but my guess is probably they don't have a lot of computer time to play video games. So it kind of really touches me when we're helping people, not just kind of your average citizen, but also kind of people who are perhaps in kind of a less privileged and less fortunate circumstances.
Yeah, that they're choosing educational type games over, just having fun, correct?
Right. That really touches me.
That is awesome. So kind of go ahead and tell us, it sounds like there's a lot of people that could use this for free. You have paid areas and stuff, but how you feel like parents and families, communities, students can, really benefit from adopting your programs and your educational philosophy. Yeah.
So the way I can encourage your families, listeners, families, kind of communities to use this is not only can you sort of use our product for free to get content, but we're actually kind of trying to take some of the concepts of Edore and sort of apply it back to Outwhiz. So if you're kind of a community that you've tried a product and you're like, it's great, but you want to kind of put your own content as well, or if you have a kind of a community that's big enough to have, some parents who have time and kind of the energy to create content or curriculum, we want to support you in doing that. So if you have like custom worksheets or kind of just ideas of things you want to put onto our platform, email me anytime at the Luminous Mind podcast at outwhiz.com. And I'll repeat that email again sort of towards the end of this Outwhiz. We've created kind of a custom email address for your audience out there. If you have kind of your own curriculum or content you want to create, and you want to put it in kind of an educational technology setting where more people and more communities can use your content or curriculum, we're happy to sort of collaborate. So
awesome.
email me again at the Luminous Mind Podcast at outwhiz.com, and it's outwhiz.com. Again, it's the Luminous Mind Podcast at outwhiz.com. If you want to kind of create and host your own online curriculum, we want to support you so you can impact more communities that are similar to your community around the world.
That sounds wonderful. So tell us what some of your long-term goals you hope to be, and then also the legacy that you want to leave behind as you develop this educational platform.
Right. Wow. Thank you. I mean, I think we're kind of too early in the process to think about legacy. Like, we hope one day we can make a difference big enough that we can start thinking about that question. So we'll start thinking. I'm happy to sort of talk about impact, right? So legacy, we're probably too early to talk about, but impact and our vision is kind of our mission, our grand mission is to make education more personalized, right? Not just to kind of what sort of your typical edtech company saying, hey, personalized to your level. We want to make it sort of personalized to your interests, to your personalities, to your character, to how you get motivated. That's kind of our general vision, right? How can we make learning not one size fit all, not kind of factory oriented, right? Not kind of all modes from the same factory, but truly kind of attentive to how you want learning to be. And I think that's a really sort of, it'll be a very, very long process. And I think our product and our service is going to continuously evolve towards that mission. But that's kind of the way we think about it. We want to empower people to be able to kind of design education that's more personalized and truly to what they want. That's kind of our kind of grand vision.
I love that vision. It's going to impact the world in ways that we never even figured. So before we say goodbye, just give us some final parting words of advice for our listeners, and then go ahead and give us your contact information again of how people can get your services and be part of your platform.
Right. So Steve Jobs says, be hungry, be foolish, right? So stay hungry, stay foolish. The sort of like my personal sort of motto is kind of stay passionate, right? Kind of stay passionate about things you care about, right? If you love ballet, stay passionate about ballet, right? If you love math, stay passionate about math. If you the only way we can truly sort of in work, to really sort of follow our passion and to dig as deep as we want to into the things we're passionate about. If we're passionate about something, we're much more likely to be really good at it. And if we're really good at it, we're much more likely to be able to sort of build a good career around it. And, if we have a good career that really gels with our passion, that part's taken care of, right?
Yeah, so kind of the personal happiness is in there.
Right. I think it kind of relates to personalized education too, right? Like, if you really follow your heart to do what you want to do and learn what you want to learn, be it something very, very, very specific. If you want to learn about, let's say, color, if you're passionate about art, and in particular you're passionate about colors, by all means study colors, right? Like, there are people who are able to build a living out of just studying color alone, right? Like, fashion companies hire people to study what's the latest color trends. Tech companies hire people who study color to kind of figure out, hey, what's the most appealing user experience from a color standpoint to users. So follow your heart, follow your passion, and then you'll find what you want to do.
That's great.
That's kind of my last parting thoughts. And my contact, again, you can reach me at the Luminous Mind Podcast at outwhiz.com. And I'm sure you can spell the Luminous Mind Podcast if you're a listener. Outwhiz is OUTWHIZ. That email reaches me directly. So if you have ideas, you want to create your own curriculum, if you want to work together in some fashion, just email the Luminous Mind Podcast at outwhiz.com, and I'll be on the other side reading your email and writing back.
Great. Well, and we will be sure to hook up all your links on our show notes page so that you could go ahead and just look at those and be able to get those for Andrew. So thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us. It's been so much fun talking to you. Quite an inspiration.
It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be able to talk to you and to your listeners.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Andrew Kwan, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out the services page to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of inspiring content, go to the sponsor page at theluminousmind.net. For more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, and now Pinterest. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us. Leave us a review. Share our content. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.